¿Dónde está mi pantalones, María?
Aquí.
María? Fernando, mi amigo. María, ¿por qué? Wanda flipped the channel. Fighting evil by the moonlight, winning love by daylight. Wanda flipped the channel. And this Sunday at Freedom Hall's Monster Truck Rally. Pay for the whole seat, but all you need is the edge. Wanda flipped the channel. Can't put it off forever, Aiko said from her recliner, tapping away at her laptop. Wanda moaned and turned the TV off. I hate monthly inventory, she said, sagging on the couch. I've bought and sold so many Sorcery the Guild cards this month. There's like 5 pages of transactions under $5, plus the number of normal stuff I've sold. Suddenly, the door burst open. I'm home, Jasmine announced, throwing down her bag and kicking off her shoes. She strutted into the living room and puffed out her chest. Look at, she said, pointing at herself. Yes, Jasmine, they're very nice, Aiko said without so much as glancing up from her computer screen. Not my rack, you clod, she said with a laugh. Look at what's on it. Wanda leaned a little. There was a little bronze pin clipped to her chest with 500 on it. Oh, you've got your 500th hour, she grinned. 500 hours at the animal shelter, Jasmine said proudly, fists on her hips. And don't you forget it. All the homeless puppies and kitties sure won't. It was Jasmine's hobby to volunteer for a cause for a few hundred hours and then cash out and add said hours to her resume. She'd done soup kitchens, Girl Scouts, organized trash pickup, and now a local animal shelter. 500 hours each. Wanda wondered where she found so much free time over the years. So the crusade for the puppies and the kitties is over. What's next? Aiko said. Big Sisters of America! Jasmine pulled a brochure from her back pocket. Tell me all about it, Wanda said innocently. Aiko harumphed a little. All right, I'm going. She laughed a little, getting her shoes and purse. I've got to do monthly inventory, she told Jasmine. Staying the night at the shop? Jasmine wanted to know. Be safe. Take a toothbrush. Got it. Wanda rolled her eyes good-naturedly and headed towards the driveway to her van. On the other side of the city, however, a less pleasant scene was unfolding. In a dark alleyway, long after the sun had gone down, a group of 6 or 7 gang members were harassing a young woman that had taken the wrong shortcut from her work to her car. They'd crowded her, torn her clothes, and pulled her into a darker dead-end corner between 2 abandoned buildings. She was thrown over a trash can while they tossed torn pieces of clothes over their shoulders, laughing and jeering while she squealed helplessly. The tiny mace bottle hadn't done much good, and the sheer number of hands held her down. The leader stepped up to be the first to rape her, and she wept while the others argued over whose turn was next. The man stepped up behind her when a pair of long shadows made the entire group turn. One was monstrously tall and built like an Amazon, wearing a face-concealing motorcycle helmet with a mirrored front. Her armor was Spartan-esque, ending with a plated skirt that reached her knees. She carried a pole hammer that looked big enough to crush a man's head like a watermelon. The other was much shorter and, frankly, barely dressed at all. Her outfit was bright and colorful, accenting her breasts and midriff while twin block hammers on hooks lay at her sides. Her face was concealed by a tiny banner mask. Well, my favorite kind of bad guys, the gangbanger rapist group, said the shorter of the two, pulling her hammers free. Her blonde hair bannered when a loud van drove by the alleyway entrance. Her Valley Girl accent made the group of men look at each other with wry smiles. They threw the woman from the trash can into the brick corner of the alleyway's dead end. She cowered among the filth and crumpled cardboard boxes, makeup smeared and crying. The tall, armored woman did not move when knives and guns started coming out. One of them fired wildly at her, but the bullets shrieked and ricocheted off her breastplate. She lifted a massive hand and slowly dusted off her front. She looked to one side and, using the bottom of her pole hammer, lifted a shred of torn blouse from the ground. It matched the tattered remains the woman in the corner was wearing. "Destroy them, jury," she said slowly. "With pleasure." Lifting her two block hammers, she dashed into the group like a force of nature. The first man went down with a crunch under the weight of her weapon. She punched with the other, sending another cartwheeling over himself. The man with the gun fired over her shoulder as she somersaulted overhead and whirled around, bashing the side of his head without mercy. The gun went clattering into the garbage and filth. They surrounded her. She spun this way and that, breaking ribs and noses and kneecaps as she went. Their screams echoed on the large brick walls of the alleyway. A spray of blood went up the side of the wall, and a tooth horrifically tinked off the brickwork. She grabbed one and pinned him against the bricks with a predatory lick of her lips. "I give up, okay? Ah! Arrest me!" he cried in pain. "My arm doesn't bend that way!" Jury gave a sharp jerk, and he screamed in agony. "It does now, bitch," she said, throwing him to one side. She saw one of them trying to crawl away. Grabbing her discarded hammer and hanging it from a hook on her hip, she kicked him in the butt to send him sprawling. "Going somewhere?" she demanded, kicking him in the side. He rolled hard into the side of a dumpster. She kicked him. She kicked him again. Then she kicked him again and again and again, until there was blood in his mouth and he wasn't moving anymore. A gun went off, a bullet blasting off the wall behind her head. She threw one of her block hammers, smashing not only the gun but the hands holding it. He screamed, holding his broken hands. She closed the distance and seized him by the hair, bashing his head against the wall twice, 3 times, 4 times, until there was a nice splatter of blood. The tall, Amazon-like woman calmly wiped a single drop of blood from her breastplate, shifting her weapon from one hand to the other. Jury danced about the alleyway, breaking and smashing and crushing until all of them were unconscious or worse, save one. The leader of the group had somehow kept his distance and had been waiting for the right time to shoot. A couple of little knife cuts were along Jury's arms and face, but very little else. When everyone else had been taken down, she started towards him, and he unloaded the clip as fast as he could. The bullets sang back and forth, but she walked aggressively at him, licking her lips. His hand was shaking too hard. One bullet even glanced off the shoulder of the Amazon woman standing away from the fight. Jury smacked the gun away with one hammer, dropped it, and grabbed him by the throat with her free hand. He gagged and flailed a little, beating against her strong arms. For such a small woman, she was super strong. She slammed him bodily against some trash cans and then lifted him high. She looked towards the larger woman. "Judge?" she asked with a predatory smile. There was a short silence. Judge thought carefully, shifting her pole hammer to her other hand while the man choked. She surveyed the scene. Gangbangers. Heavy sleeve tattoos, battle scars, all minorities, save one. She spotted matching shoes and shoulder tattoos between all of them. An organized gang. Knives and guns. Little jewelry or other monetary items. They were poor. The neighborhood was poor. Warts on one of them spoke of STDs. She glanced at the woman in the corner and the tattered remains of clothes strewn about the alleyway. She was still sobbing. Had she been raped before they arrived? Hard to tell from where she stood. "Kill them all," Judge said, slowly folding her arms. "All right," Jury said enthusiastically. She gave a hard twist, and the man went limp. "Okay, that's far enough," a voice from above shouted down at them. Judge and Jury both turned, looking up a fire escape. A young black woman in a purple leotard and a shield on one arm stood at the top of the building. She leap, jumped down the levels of the catwalks until her yellow boots struck the ground. "You know, I was gonna mind my own business and try not to steal your thunder, but I think you've done enough. They're down. Call the police and be done." "Shield Maiden." Judge said slowly, the usual cool and collected tone shifting to one of mild interest. Shield who? Jury said, dropping the man and putting her fists on her hips. A local, Judge said, gesturing lightly, credited to have captured both Lord Dragon in a prison riot and 10-ton gun shogun of the Thousand Hands gang during a mass kidnapping. Her motorcycle helmet tilted a little. Did you not do the reading I gave you before we came to this city, Jury? Jury looked guiltily to one side, coughing a little. I can see you have the situation well in hand, you two, Shield Maiden said, eyeing the terrified woman in the corner. But in this city we don't kill people without trial and sentencing by a judge. I am judge, said Judge. Yes, that's very clever. I see what you did there, Shield Maiden said flatly, not impressed with her. And your jury. I watched everything from the rooftop there. She gestured to where she jumped down from. But one thing you two are not is executioner. Executioner is dead, a victim of an unsavory lifestyle, Judge said somberly. AIDS. Jury's growing frown spoke volumes. Shield Maiden squared her shoulders a little bit. So, they were a trio and one of their number was dead. No doubt they were still reeling. Sorry for your loss, but these men are going to jail, not the morgue. They're gangbangers, rapists, Jury said, hanging her hammers on their hooks on her hips. We got here first, back off. She got very close to Shield Maiden, who widened her stance just a little. The city's plenty big, go find your own bad guys to beat down. Murder is murder, Shield Maiden said, shaking her head and lifting her shield arm just a little. Pfft, you think you can stop us? Jury crowed a little, hands resting on the shafts of her block hammers. I can, Shield Maiden said slowly. We don't have to fight, though. Judge? Jury wanted to know, fingers slowly curling around the handles of her hammers. There was a long, icy silence between the three women. Judge's head tilted only slightly, studying Shield Maiden. She certainly looked strong, with those mannish shoulders and defined abs. But how strong? One didn't lightly step into tights, or in her case leotards, to become a superhero. Was she mundane? Magical? Enhanced? Judge could not judge someone she'd never seen personally. This woman is standing in the way of our justice, Judge said slowly. If you want to wear the armor I wear someday, use your best judgment. She didn't move from where she stood. A beatdown it is, then. Jury enthusiastically pulled her block hammers and swung. Shield Maiden's shield rose up to meet her left hammer, but the right hooked around and struck her shoulder. She grunted, leaning with the blow so no bones would break. Turning, leaping, and swinging with a wild haymaker, Jury made the shield ring over and over like a gong. Sprays of sparks and debris went this way and that. The shield wouldn't break or bend to her might. Shield Maiden leaned this way and that, minding her head and stomach so Jury didn't take her breath or her vision. She was a wildcat. Jury leapt, using trash cans and dumpsters and even the sheer brick wall to gain a height advantage. She seemed to be trying for an overhead swing, but couldn't make it connect. Shield Maiden was too quick and graceful to simply be caught over the head. Jury leapt from atop a dumpster and landed hard with a bounce of her enormous, barely covered breasts, sending a shockwave of dust and debris that Shield Maiden could feel in her feet. The cracked spiderwebbed away from her weapon and the recoil shook her arms. Shield Maiden danced about her, making a hoop shape with her arms and leaping into a flip jump like an ice skater. Jury's block hammer whizzed past her waistline as she leaned at an odd angle to land gracefully to one side of her. She continued to spin and whacked Jury's head with her shield. The metal rang. Jury staggered in surprise more than anything, but a quick line of red down one of her temples said she was in pain. All right, shield, bitch, that does it! Judge didn't move from where she stood, only tilted her head slightly as she watched Shield Maiden's movements. Shield Maiden leapt into a Lutz jump, flowing around Jury's wild haymakers like so much water. She saw Jury's arm tighten and lifted her shield just enough. The metal rang half a dozen times while she swung a mile a minute like a boxer with her hammers. What a fury! Backing off, Shield Maiden switched arms and rolled her shoulders a little bit. Jury was panting from sheer effort. Another spray of sparks lit the alleyway as they crashed against one another again and again. A lucky swing knocked the wind out of Shield Maiden and she was crushed into a dumpster. The big metal container bent under the abuse and she went to one knee for a few moments. "You gonna help me with this one, or?" Jury wanted to know. Her lip was busted and a little fat. "You chose to fight her," Judge said. "A true judge must live with their decisions." "I'll earn that armor someday," Jury panted before returning to the task at hand. Shield Maiden stood with a clenched fist. So, they were teacher and student. This was just a lesson for Jury, not a real battle. She didn't like being used as an example. Clenching her teeth, she waited for the right moment. There! Shield Maiden knelt all the way down under one of Jury's horizontal haymakers and leaped as hard as she could. The spectacular uppercut crushed the small woman's solar plexus. Spit flew from her mouth and all of her limbs trailed behind her flying body as she crashed into an array of trash cans and rubbish. She hit the wall with a smash, walked forward 2 steps, then fell on her face with a moan. Her hammers were still at Shield Maiden's feet. Judge twitched a little. "Enough." She lifted a hand barely above her waistline. "Her lesson is learned." "Now you and me?" Shield Maiden wanted to know, scrubbing the back of her hand across her nose. "I'm surprised you didn't jump in to fight me both at once." Jury is like a child. She needed to learn that there are many stronger than her, Judge said, leaning a little to see if her apprentice was conscious. She was not. "You're not much better," Shield Maiden scowled, rolling her shoulders and switching arms with her shield again. "It's not okay to kill people without a trial and sentencing. It's the law. You should be teaching her that." "I am the law," Judge said, unfolding her arms at last and stepping forward into the alleyway proper. Her pole hammer slowly went from vertical to horizontal. Shield Maiden walked slowly forward to meet her. They stood across from each other, barely an arm's length apart. "Tell me, ballet or figure skater?" "Huh?" Shield Maiden startled a little. "Your movements are too fluid, and they do not match a martial art I am privy to. So, ballet or figure skater?" Judge wanted to know. "Skater. A long time ago," Shield Maiden frowned at her. "You are very skilled if you can perform those moves not only off the ice, but in those boots." Judge tilted her head just a little to study Shield Maiden's feet. "Jury could learn much from your grace." "Don't change the subject. I have to stop you and turn you in to the police," Shield Maiden said loudly, a slight blush of flattery touching her cheeks. "That won't happen," Judge said slowly. "I will make you a deal instead. I will withdraw my judgment for these men if you will let me carry my apprentice to safety." "No deal," Shield Maiden said. "If you're letting her kill people for sport or some perverted sense of justice, you won't stop after tonight. I'm stopping both of you here, now." She rolled her shoulders again to loosen the muscles. The sudden motion was so quick, so powerful, Shield Maiden didn't feel it at first. The flat of Judge's pole hammer struck the right side of her face, right where her jawline met her ear. She flew to one side and struck a wall so hard she bounced. She hit the ground with a scream of pain and rolled. She tasted blood, slowly rolling onto her stomach to crawl forward. "Oh my God, you fight hard!" Shield Maiden marveled in agony, spitting blood and shuddering with pain. "My offer stands. You fought well, but enough for now," Judge said, arm still extended from the swing. "I watched you fight Jury. Now you stand no chance. Cut your losses, Shield Maiden, she coaxed. Shield Maiden's eyes flicked past Judge into the alleyway beyond. She gave a painful grimace that was probably supposed to be a smile. No deal, she repeated, slowly righting herself. There was a gap between yourself and Jury, but there is a chasm between you and I, Judge said, lifting her pole hammer again. She watched Shield Maiden widen her stance. Don't try it, she started to say, but Shield Maiden dashed forward with all her speed. The purple-clad hero leaped against a wall, launched herself high, and turned her shield face down. A double axe-handle swing with an unbreakable shield leading it. Shouting in exhilaration, Shield Maiden swung with all her might. Judge's mirror-like faceplate suddenly ignited with an inner light, and she leaned forward. The entire thing lit up with a blood-red energy that gathered, pulsed, and then blasted forward in a wide arc. Shield Maiden was blasted out of midair, up and away during her leap. She screamed across the entire length of the alleyway, striking the dead end. The beam kept her pinned. She felt her skin blistering and her outfit beginning to shred. Desperately lifting her shield, she slid down the wall as Judge pressed her into the corner with the red beam of death. The beam split in a million different directions, spitting holes into trash cans, the brickwork, and even skyward. The innocent woman in the corner screamed in terror, covering her head as a thin beam of light traced through the bricks above her head. When the blast finally ended, Shield Maiden stood there with steam rising from her shoulders. "Your magic," Shield Maiden said accusingly, switching arms with her shield. "That should have shattered your shield," Judge said, touching thumb and forefinger to her chin. "It's more than metal. Try not to think too hard about it." Shield Maiden quickly sauntered forward, trying to press and look eager to fight her again. Half of this fight was a head game. Her shoulder straps suddenly snapped from the fraying of the death beam, and one of her breasts almost fell out. "Shit," she said, grabbing the strap before the girl's came free. Time out," she said, fiddling. "Time out?" Judge wondered incredulously. "Oh, don't tell me Goldilocks over there has never had a wardrobe malfunction," Shield Maiden snapped. "How much double-sided tape does she use to keep that outfit on?" She twisted the fabric, knotted it, and pulled it snug. Had Judge been a lesser woman, she would have face-palmed watching Shield Maiden finagle her outfit into behaving again. "I don't have time for this." Judge walked to pick up Jury around the middle. She slung her protege over her shoulder. A ring of dust rushed away from her feet, and she slowly levitated into the air. "Goodbye, Shield Maiden." Hey, Shield Maiden demanded, rushing forward. "We weren't done. Get back here." Judge was already out of reach. With Jury on her shoulder and her pole hammer in the other hand, she turned and shot away into the night sky. "Hey!" Shield Maiden shouted at the empty sky. "Come back here! Coward!" But there was no answer. Shield Maiden sighed. "How do they all get away by flying?" she asked no one in particular, slowly face-palming. "I should really carry a grappling hook or something. Jeez." A small voice made her turn. "Oh gosh, I forgot all about you." She quickly turned to the only innocent person that had been present. "Are you okay?" "Shaken, but yeah," she managed to say, holding her shoulders to keep her decency. "Can you take me someplace safe?" "I'll do you one better." Shield Maiden pulled a disposable phone from her little leg pouch, flipping it open. She called the police, and they arrived within minutes. The beaten-down gangbangers were collected, all of them alive, much to Shield Maiden's relief. "Did you want to make a statement or anything, lady?" one of the police officers wanted to know. "There are two dangerous vigilantes in the city right now. They call themselves Judge and Jury." Shield Maiden gave a brief description of both of them, their powers and personalities, into a little recorder that the officer held up to her. "Tell everyone to be careful. Jury can be dealt with, but Judge..." She slowly touched the rapidly forming tightness on the back of her jaw. She's dangerous. Very dangerous. We'll notify Laserwolf right away, the police officer said. You will? Shield Maiden frowned. Oh yeah, the city police force has a line straight to the guy in case of dire emergencies. If you couldn't handle these two, he will, he assured her. Shield Maiden felt the blow to her ego and made her bruise pulse in pain. He seemed to notice the grimace and quickly amended. I mean, you saved these guys from being executed. That's good work. He smiled reassuringly. You don't have to spare my ego, officer. She held his shoulder for a moment, holding the side of her face with the other hand. She picked up her shield off the ground. I got a pretty good beating, and I'm gonna catch flack for it. She sagged against the wall for a moment to catch her breath. The innocent woman that had witnessed everything came from the ambulance where she'd been sitting. She had a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. She said softly. I can't say I would have spared them like you, but I guess that's why you're a superhero and I'm not, right? She gave a small smile. Shield Maiden smiled painfully. It would have been pretty traumatizing to see 6 or 7 guys get murdered in front of me anyway. We ran some thumbprints in the squad car, the officer said. Some of these guys got yellow sheets as long as my arm. They're gonna go away for a long, long time. Good. At least there's that, Shield Maiden said with a nod. Some victory is better than none at all. You learn that when you're a cop. Maybe it means the same for superheroes too, yeah? He touched her shoulder and she smiled a little. It felt good to be reassured by a cop and citizen alike. I better go, Shield Maiden said at last. Thank you, the woman shouted after her as she made her way down the alleyway, up the fire escape, and onto the roof. Within the hour, Wanda felt the entire right side of her face beginning to swell up. Her right eye began to struggle to open, and some of her hearing began to go as well. She staggered back into her van, which she'd hidden a few streets down in a dark alleyway. Slamming the door, she laid on her back with a loud moan of pain. Pawing around for a moment, she found her smartphone under the driver's side seat. Need help, she texted. Hurt bad, she texted. There was a long silence while she stared at the metal ceiling. Coming, her benefactor texted back. Wanda peeled off her banner mask. She flopped down, closing her eyes in pain. She let the darkness take her so she wouldn't have to feel it anymore.